The world tells you that if you experience same-sex attraction, then you must fight against the family proclamation, you must leave the church, and you've got to join the movement. Behold, I say unto you, nay. You don't have to do that. Those aren't your only two options. And you know what? I've got proof. Welcome to the Rock and Roll Fireside featuring Brother Jacob's Jams. I am your humble host, Kyle Jacobs. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe and share. And don't forget to check out Brother Jacob's Jams on Spotify and iTunes and wherever music is streamed. I got to sit down with Alex Lindstrom, who recently wrote an article in the September 2025 Liahona about his experience with same-sex attraction and how he reconciles that with the family proclamation. What I love in this interview is his demonstration of courage and faith. You guys, he defends the family proclamation. He defends the church. This is not an interview you're going to want to miss. And since you've already made it this far, keep going until the end, and you're going to be inspired and you're going to be uplifted. And hopefully this can be something that you can share with others who may be experiencing the same thing. So, check this out. If you haven't picked up your September 2025 Liahona, formerly known as the Ensign, which I can never get right, I still call it the Ensign. If you haven't picked it up, you should pick it up because there is a wonderful article there written by Alex talking about the family proclamation. It recently celebrated its 30th year of existence, which is crazy. But Alex has a very unique perspective on this. So, Alex, tell me how you got to this point that you're now a published writer in the Liahona, and and what this article is all about.
Well, it's kind of funny. I mean, as you'd read in the article, I'm one of those who experience same-sex attraction. The reason I wrote it was just because I didn't really see many voices similar to mine being represented. And, they say representation is important. And I just saw a lot of people feeling like the family proclamation doesn't include them and doesn't, I don't know. It's kind of funny because I myself struggle with some perfectionism and scrupulosity and stuff. And I saw some of the same patterns in people seeing men's and women's roles as these rigid, rules. And if you're not married with 2.5 kids,
Right.
or is it more than that? I don't know. But
It's probably less than that now.
yeah, but like that there's something wrong with you or that you don't belong somehow. And I just felt like I had a perspective that I'm like, you don't need to have all that in order to support the fundamentals that are in it. So
Yeah.
that's kind of what made me want to write it.
Yeah, I love it. And the article is so good. And I've known you for a couple of years now. We had an interview in a previous podcast, and I was just so impressed. One thing that struck me about you is your courage to talk about all this. Not only about being gay and not hiding that at all. There's no closet involved here. But also kind of bucking the norm of the LGBTQ community. And I know that we're treading on thin ice when we talk about this, but I invite us both to speak bluntly about this. Typically, just with my experience in the United States, there is this really strong us versus them mentality. And I know, that comes from both sides. But it seems like the LGBTQ community is very not selective, but if you don't follow everything that they say, then you're kind of out of the club, and it's not really a fair thing. Like, what's been your experience
Mm-hmm.
with that?
Well, I think, and I feel it necessary to say that I think what we hear most of is the extremes.
Yeah.
And there's really a lot of people, either in similar situations as me, or they're kind of in the middle, they don't really want to upset anyone. It's
Yeah.
just kind of living their lives. But yeah, I've kind of felt that way. It's kind of interesting. I feel like I put some distance between myself and the community as a whole, just because it started, you know, there's language is powerful,
Hmm.
and I feel like when you throw around the words equality or discrimination or second class, it can, people don't want to be bad in that
Yeah.
world. They don't want to be anti-equality, but but they also don't, they just want to be, people want to just be good people. But when it doesn't align with, the Family Proclamation or something, things can get a little bit hostile. And,
Yeah.
um, for me, it was just better to pull back a little bit, and that's kind of where I am now. But I'm lucky to have, a little group of guys that feel the same way I do about the Family Proclamation, and some of them are married to women, but we
Yeah.
you know share that. We have a lot of other differences, but we share the gospel in common.
Yeah, I love that too. And I really like what you said, where all we see is the extremes. And that is so true. And it's in the political sphere, and it can be on the religious side as well, where, you are either like, full on LGBT, everyone else is a bigot, or you're like super hardcore conservative and not inclusive of anyone. And it's like, guys, there's a whole, most people are in
Mhm.
on that spectrum somewhere in the middle, and yet the media really pushes that division because
Oh,
that sells.
something interesting is I started following some influencers on Instagram because I agreed with them on some other things, but um, I found it funny that I got called to repentance for being a Latter Day Saint, and
Oh,
I got called to repentance for being gay, and I'm like, isn't it great that I'm in a church where these
right.
two parts of me can coexist and
Yeah.
be intertwined? But for some people, it is so black and white, and
Yeah.
it's I have more and more recently, which is interesting. I've seen kind of some of the ugliness of some of the Christian. Uh, I don't want. Should I say extremists? I don't know. Just some
Yeah.
people out there who don't really understand, and I'm
Yeah.
just like, oh, I'm thankful to
Right.
be in this
Right.
church.
Well, and I'll tell you what, it's so funny because as I was reading your article, it really kind of dovetailed with a lot of the thoughts that I had recently about the Family Proclamation, and specifically, I've tried to figure out, and I want to get your opinion on this as well. What is so triggering about the Family Proclamation? Like some people, and unfortunately, you see members of the church who are responding in this same way, where they're faithful, but the Family Proclamation, it's more than the fact that they're just a little bit ashamed of it, or they don't really want to talk about it. Some are very against it, thinking this is going to be a policy that changes and is really an exclusive policy right now. And I'm like, what is it about the Family Proclamation that makes them feel that way? Because in a lot of recent conference articles and talks, we get reminded, no, this is doctrine, this is unchanging.
Mhm.
But I've wondered why is it such a sore subject for some, and I wonder if what it is the clarity of it. It is extremely clear in setting out what the standards are. And I think people have mistaken that clarity for hostility, or for a lack of warmth, or for a demand that if you don't fit in these boxes perfectly, then
Mhm.
you are imperfect and you are not following it correctly. And I wonder if that is a vibe that people are picking up from the Family Proclamation, whether right or wrong. But what do you think?
Wow, I feel like it's a little bit of everything you just said.
Yeah.
Um, but like I said, I feel like I've put some distance between me and some narratives that, I have a hard time hearing all the time. But
Yeah.
first off, I'm thinking of, the perfectionism and
Hmm.
living up to expectations that maybe you were held to as a kid. I've had to come to terms with not being married for a little bit. I'm at a greater peace with that as of late, but oh, I sometimes wonder if people do um, kind of see it as a bunch of rigorous. What am I trying to say?
Rigid. maybe,
rigid,
or
yeah, rigid
yeah,
rules, and
rigidity. We're making up words all over the place here. That's all
which
right.
I can't help but understand because, I went through a period of time where I felt like if I wasn't actively pursuing marriage, then I'm doing it wrong and I'm on
Yeah,
the wrong path that God has for me. Um, and I also think that there's uh, some bad apples at work.
yeah,
Um, I think one example is when uh, Elder Holland gave his talk at BYU in 2022, I think, August maybe. Um, and I understood what he was trying to say.
yeah.
And maybe we talked about this on a different the
Yeah.
others
Well, are we talking about when he talked about like defending the faith as if with muskets?
with muskets, yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then
That
talking
got
about,
so blown up. Yeah,
talking about friendly fire and stuff. And I'm like, well, I've kind of been a recipient of friendly fire, kind of, and
yeah.
maybe I've given it, unfortunately.
Right.
um, but I saw people, you know, either if they're allies or in the LGBT community or in a certain newspaper, um, kind of accentuate and say this is what he meant. He meant that we should, shoot gay
Right.
people. And I just, oh,
Well, and
it,
you
it's
hear
not what it wasn't my experience.
right. Well, and you hear stuff like that, and I hope that more parents and more school teachers are starting to teach some critical thinking and like understanding the source. Because I remember going to college in particular, and it was talking about here's what a good source does and here's what a bad source does. If there's extreme bias or extreme prejudice, that's probably not a good source you want to get to, because it takes all of 3 seconds to know Elder Holland's personality. He would never actually condone going and doing that and fighting and all these things. Yeah, guys, you're
Hmm.
purposely trying to represent him in something that just a little bit of research would prove is incorrect. And
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
and again, I you could throw a lot of that at the media and at the idea of a movement. I think that's one of the big issues that gets people away from looking at individuals and
Hmm.
to
Hmm.
greater movements. And if it doesn't serve the movement, it needs to be rejected and the propaganda needs to be hardcore. Where I'm like, guys, look at who Elder Holland is and President Holland now. Uh, and you would know that that was a silly, silly narrative.
Hmm. Oh, and he's in other talks and stuff. He's said some really heartfelt, you know, things about people in the church experiencing same-sex
Yeah.
attraction. And I'm
Yep.
just like, and I felt his love and concern even during that talk.
Yeah.
And I think there's some people that do intentionally twist things to make it sound worse. And I just
Yeah.
think you're not making it any easier for these people.
Right. Well, I'll tell you what. This actually brings up something from your article here that I'm going to quote, um, because it seems like that stance of being able to take Elder Holland with the charitable understanding and saying, "Oh, here's what he likely meant here," versus the antagonistic understanding. That's an intentional choice, but it brings up something in the article where he says, where you say, "Nevertheless, my situation drove me to seek a greater understanding from the Lord of the family proclamation and how I spiritually belong in God's plan." And again, I was so impressed by that because, again, that's an intentional decision. If we go strictly on emotion, it could be easy to be swayed either way, one way or another. But again, it is an intentional decision to say, I choose to follow this path versus that path. And with the family proclamation not perfectly lining up with your situation and your personality and your feelings, instead of like running away from it and trashing it and joining the movement, you specifically sought for better understanding. Why is that?
Hmm. Well, I think at the time, this was, 2015 or something, or it was 2013 when Utah legalized gay marriage for a little bit. Um, I was kind of torn for a little bit because people would make some decent arguments. I can fathom and support a good, better, best situation. Like, you know, there's a guy that I follow who's married to a man and he has two kids, and I actually, I hope for the best for them. And
Yeah.
so there's some examples like that. But I was wondering, I think one of my main questions was, I know that the church values, first off, individual agency, but also respects the abilities of people to worship how they may, live how they choose to live. And so I wondered, I'm like, why do they feel the need to speak out on this so much? And
Yeah.
so I read the family proclamation. I had gone to the temple, and I think I did. Yeah, I remember where I was in the bountiful temple celestial room when I just felt like there's something divine and set apart about marriage between a man and a woman, and children having that union, uh, to be brought into the world.
Yeah, that's profound. You bring up something too that I want to talk about from your article, and it's something that didn't hit me until this past General Conference, October 2025. Right here at the beginning of your article, you say, I realize that even those of us who do not enjoy an ideal family situation can still sustain and defend the principles found in the proclamation, which is, basically what you just said there. And it's so funny because I think about the proclamation and how much resistance there is to it. I also think about our dear new prophet, President Oakes, who is, don't tell the others, he's always been my favorite. I love President Oakes,
I
but
remember that. Yeah.
yeah, but he ruffles some feathers too because he is very
Mhm.
direct. A lot of people don't like his direct style, and they can accuse him, even within the church. They can accuse him of the same things that they accuse the proclamation of, which is being too rigid, too direct, too blunt. We all respond differently. I think that's why there's so much diversity within the Quorum of the 12, because we all respond in different ways. You can be somebody who really connects with President Oakes, or with Elder Gong, who has a very different style. But I didn't. I knew President Oakes' family situation, but for some reason I didn't make this connection. People think that he is super rigid, especially with the family proclamation. He is definitely like, this is this is doctrine, and yet he did not grow up with the ideal. His father passed away when he was 7 years old, and his talk this past conference was just a total tearjerker. And to me, it was very different from what he's ever done. I've never seen him get that emotional,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
it clicked for me, like, he is a perfect ambassador for the proclamation, to the world, because he didn't come from the perfect nuclear family. He didn't grow up with a father. And so just that perspective, uh that affected me this time around, and it just made me love him even more, which I didn't think was
Mhm.
possible. But I love what you said there too. Like, there is still a spot for me. There is still a way to defend the proclamation, even though I don't have the ideal. From your article here, you quote another one of my favorites, Elder D. Todd Christofferson, and I will just say this: the new First Presidency. I when I saw that D. Todd was in there as a second counselor, I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is going to be the greatest thing ever!" Because I love him, and he kind of drives this home. He says, to declare the fundamental truths relative to marriage and family is not to overlook or diminish the sacrifices and successes of those for whom the ideal is not a present reality. Even so, everyone has gifts, everyone has talents, everyone can contribute to the unfolding of the divine plan in each generation. And what's neat about him is he's speaking from experience as well. His brother is very out as a gay member of the church as well. How have you felt that? Like, so it's easy to see on paper, it's easy to say that, but what have your experiences been with trying to connect with your purpose and connect with your, I guess, the fact that you are acceptable before the Lord?
When it comes to finding purpose, just recently in the last couple of years, I've kind of shifted my focus from kind of shoulding myself, like, oh, I should be married, and I should at
Hmm.
least want to be married. When the truth is, like, I don't think I want it.
Yeah.
um, so instead of just focusing on what I don't want or don't have, it's just like what's right in front of me. And I have friends, I have nieces and nephews, and um, one on the way,
Yeah.
and I can just be the best uncle there is. And I'm still waiting to be the rich uncle. I would like to
Right.
do that, but
See, there you go.
um, my Disney trips are not, helping with
Right.
that right now.
Yeah, that'll drain the account faster than you can shake a
Yep,
stick, man.
yep. But and friendship. I feel like I was blessed to come across some people who in other Christian denominations, they're not waiting for their church to change what marriage is. Like
Yeah.
they believe the same things we do. Well, some of them are changing, but some who are more orthodox in terms of marriage, they're not waiting for their churches to change. They're finding ways forward to find
Yeah.
connection and friendship, and I feel like those are legitimate needs even for people who are married.
I'll tell you, I really like how you say this, and correct me if I'm wrong here, because again, this isn't my perspective, but from what I gathered of what you just said, it almost seems like it would be. I think, how do I want to say this? It could be that many gay members of the church are wasting a lot of time and a lot of energy trying to change the church. And
Hmm.
and I think, with President Oakes and many other apostles doubling down on saying, like, guys, this is not going to change. This is doctrine. It's not policy.
Hmm.
I wonder if a part of that is to hope that that really does sink in, and that the message isn't, hey, you're SOL. The message is, become active in any way that you can, and start
Hmm.
living your life in a way that is consistent with gospel principles, but that can be fulfilling. And I really love what you talk about. I've seen a lot of your posts that talk about the nature and the importance of true friendship, and brotherhood and sisterhood, and so being able to devote your time and energy and your happiness in pursuit of that, as opposed to trying to change one of the doctrines of God,
Hmm.
seems like a much more productive and happier lifestyle to try to embrace.
Hmm. That, yeah. I'm aware of an organization. I feel the need to, refrain from naming specific names, but there's an organization that's rather large and um, has, excellent intention of having community and support. But I feel like it's. Oh, I have my cat here. That's who
No,
I'm
yeah, no
petting
worries.
right now. Um, but it's some of them treat it just as a given that the church is eventually going to change,
Right.
and
There's a lot of members of the church who think that as well, and they're just,
yeah, and
and they're
I just
activists
think,
against the church to try to make that happen. I'm like, guys,
and preparing people for it and stuff, and I
yeah,
just something. I have a friend who gave a fireside a couple years ago now, but the title was Faith in Christ, Not Outcomes.
ah,
And, you know, I don't know what's going to come down the line.
yeah,
I can't say for certain that things won't change. I want certain changes, but it's not what they want. Anyway,
right.
but it's I just feel like placing hope in that kind of change is just a setup for discipline for, you know, big disappointment.
Right.
And
Right.
I know I have some friends who are not currently on the covenant path, but they're also not trying to change the church. It's
Yeah.
just kind of, and I have more hope for them than I do some of these people who are might be fully active, temple recommend holding, but um, are kind of spreading seeds of doubt, I think,
Yeah.
amongst people.
So what is it? Is it just an individual matter where it's like, one of these days, hopefully that realization clicks to say, hey, I wake up every day mad at the church because I want this certain outcome and it's not happening and it may not even happen in my lifetime. How how do people get from that point to a point of acceptance and going full bore, put your shoulder to the wheel into creating the happiest life that you can on the covenant path?
From the very beginning, when I started understanding this about myself, I didn't really get the notion that there wasn't a place for me in the church.
Oh, okay.
I came across that my bishop gave me the pamphlet, God Loveth His Children. And it's kind of funny. I would read it now and I'm like, oh, well, that's, kind of ancient
Yeah.
thinking. But the basics led me to know that there's still a place for me, that this doesn't have to preclude me from any blessings of the gospel.
Right.
And so I definitely have had a journey, but it wasn't like, you know, I didn't come from anger and bitterness towards the church.
Do you have a message for those who maybe have been, or do you feel like you can't step into that arena because you've never experienced that, or do you feel that your perspective can really help someone cross that bridge?
I think something I would say, like if I were to say to someone, is just start where you are right now, and you don't need to know all the answers.
Yeah.
It kind of people talk about kind of a sin of certainty.
Oh,
I've kind of had to embrace the idea that I'm not going to know what the future holds.
right.
And I always hate it when people say, set up a 5-year goal and a 10-year goal. And it just frustrates me because I can never think of anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know, all I have is the present moment and I can have
Yeah.
short term goals.
Well,
um,
yeah.
yeah.
And
But
we're called to have that faith as well. Like it's such an important thing to remember because whether somebody is going through what you're going through or what you have been through, or they're just straight up having a crisis of faith, they have these questions about our history, or the book of Abraham, all these typical questions that come up. I've seen a lot of people who've left the church because they didn't find the answers. And
mhm.
for me, I'm like, first of all, be patient. It's great that you're looking for answers, but we're not meant to know everything. And that's not a bury your head in the sand type of thing, like, oh, blind faith. But faith at its core is trusting in things that we can't see. Like if we don't have an answer for something, our reaction should not be to say, well, if I don't know it, then it's not true. It's like, no, there's a little bit of pride there. Let's have some humility and say, okay, I don't know this, but I do know certain things, and I'm going to stay true to my covenants.
Mhm.
I would assume it's the same concept as having same sex attraction and still sticking with the church. Your faith in the Savior and in the restoration of the church uh, can carry you through. I would think. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. Something else I wanted to say in reference to, possibly helping someone is there are positives to this experience.
Hmm.
And um, I personally don't like viewing SSA as like an illness or a malady that needs to be corrected, or even when what I'm about to say is not official church doctrine. But I'm hoping that I take some of the aspects of my attractions into the next life with me, even if I do have a wife and kids,
Yeah.
because I hope to have deep, fulfilling relationships with my eternal friends, I guess, the
Yeah.
same sociality. Um, but so I'm going to reference a book called Spiritual Friendship, and it's written by Reverend Dr. Wesley Hill. He's I think an Anglican pastor, I think, but one of his lines that I'm just remembering right now was like, "But what am I called to positively? Like, what about the experience of same-sex attraction could lend to the kingdom of God?" And that just really helped me reframe. And like, I don't need to view this as a negative thing. It could be a strength.
Mm,
And I know a lot of people who are even more conservative than I am, and people who are in mixed orientation marriages, who have said that, you know, there's a purpose behind same sex love,
yeah,
and it just needs to be within the bounds the Lord has set.
right.
And that's why, when I do have friends or acquaintances who are off the covenant path, I can still honor and celebrate the connection that they have with each other, even
Yeah,
if it may not be in the best form at the moment.
yeah.
um, but he wrote this whole book. I highly recommended it. Spiritual Friendship. And
Okay.
then the subtitle is Finding Love in the Church as a Celibate Gay Christian.
What we just talked about really goes hand in hand with a part of your article here near the end. It says, surrounding myself with others who face similar situations, but who are committed to the gospel, has shown me that desires for companionship can be channeled and fulfilled in morally righteous ways. As the prophet Alma said, bridle all your passions that ye may be filled with love. Certainly, friendship is a place to put some of that love for single people and married people alike. Really, really love that. And I like, how you said you've taken that a step further, and aspects of your same sex attraction can be beneficial not only to those who experience the same things that you do, but for your ward family, your stake family. Those traits of who you are, and being able to lead out and demonstrate true brotherly love and friendship. I don't know that there's a ward or a stake in the world who couldn't use more of that. And so uh, I think that's just such a great example that you are setting and being committed to. So bravo there.
Well, thanks.
Yep. All right. Well, cool, Alex. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I honestly, I love doing interviews. I've loved this interview because I feel the spirit. The things that you have said are extremely inspiring to me. And really, I want to thank you, for being an example of somebody who can be dedicated to the gospel while still being gay. It's like two things can be true at the same time. And I think in our divisive world, you have to pick a side. It's got to be one or the other. And I love that you are kind of like this monument of pushing back against that type of thinking. So thank you for that.
Oh,
So,
I don't want to be a monument, but
right. Well, there's pros and cons to that.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
but
There's others out there with similar voices. So
yeah. Yep. So that's excellent. So thanks for fighting the good fight. Everybody, thanks so much for joining me today. Check out this article in the Ensign. See, there, I did it again. The Liahona, September 2025. And the article is called Finding Myself in the Family Proclamation. It's a short read. I definitely highly recommend it. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the Rock and Roll Fireside. Check out Brother Jacob's Jams for all of your rockin' LDS music needs. And don't forget to live with faith and courage. We'll see you next time.